Hi everyone, this is Charmander, and in this video, I'm going to start a new series on the best hero pairing depending on each of the different squad type. So I'm going to be covering range hero pairs, as well as rider hero pairs, and finally, infantry hero pairs. The infantry hero pairs I'm not going to make until the new infantry heroes come out in June, so you do need to wait for that. So for this video, I'm going to focus solely on range field hero combinations, and I'm going to mention why those pairs are good, and I'm going to give them my personal ranking on how effective I think they are. And in the end, I'm going to give some suggestions for a 5 range squads. So if you're a range main and you want to have 5 squads of 10 different range legendary hero combinations, then I'm going to be providing my input on that as well. So with that being said, let's go over the heroes in range that traditionally would work well together. The first one is your traditional Julia and Lewis range combination. So for the longest time, Julia and Lewis has been the match made in heaven in regards to range in general. So range players would use Julia and Lewis for both field and also for rally. And to this day, it's still a very good combination. It is no longer the best combination, and I'll explain why. So nowadays, I see Julia and Lewis combination as a glass cannon build because from a pure damage dealing perspective, it is, in my opinion, still the strongest combination for the purpose of doing range field. The problem is Julia and Lewis together is a glass cannon, meaning they deal a lot of damage, but they're also really weak and they get killed very easily. A lot of players has also been trained that the moment they see Julia, they'll focus fire on her. So even though this combination deals a lot of damage, it's not going to last very long in the field unless you have amazing armaments where your hero is over 6 mil, for example. Then okay, maybe it's viable to put this combination in the field and not risk getting swarming killed off very easily. This combination deals a lot of damage, and the most amount of damage from a damage perspective because Lewis's 4th skill, Sonata of Sorrow, has this ridiculous rage recovery of 25 when using basic attacks. Pair that with Julia's 120 rage recovery after firing a skill damage, and you have one insane rage regeneration monster of a pair. On top of that, Julia does 17% skill damage, and when you combine that to Lewis's 30% skill damage, you have a whopping 47% skill damage combined, making this a very strong skill damage combination. Range attack for Lewis is also 30%, combining that with Julia's 20% range squad attack, and that's 50% right there. So as you can see, this combination, even to this day, is still a threat in the field because of the amount of damage they deal to your opponents. But as I mentioned, outside of a one-on-one scenario, so if you do manage to trick an enemy into doing a one-on-one with you, then yes, you can definitely put Julia and Lewis because you're gonna kill the other player pretty quickly, especially if you have good armaments, good workshop, good beasts. But other than that, I would actually rank this as B because it is in a way a liability because the fact that it gets swarmed so easily. The next combination, and in my opinion, the best combination for range in the field, and I would actually give this an S tier, is a combination of Sophie and Julia together. So I got a chance to experiment with different field, and I was so shocked how strong freaking Julia and Sophie together. Sophie does have to be the leader of the two because if she's the leader, the rage requirement is just 900. So this allows her to fire her rage skill really quickly. And they regenerate rage fairly quickly, not as fast as Julia and Lewis, but still quite fast because of the 900 rage requirement for Sophie's skill damage combined with Julia's 120 rage regeneration after firing a skill damage. So this is still one of the best combination for building up rage and firing that skill damage. Of course, you also have Julia's traditional silence, which is always annoying for the enemy as they can't fire off their skill damage. But another thing that's really good is this combination is quite tanky. To illustrate that, if you look at Julia's range squad HP, she has 40% for range squad HP, and combining that with Sophie's 32%, you have 72% total for range squad HP. And as you can see, HP is one of the best attributes in the game because it's hard to find any attributes that will add HP. At the same time, the damage that you deal is also stronger because Sophie increases the skill damage taken by your opponents by 20%. So the damage that you deal is actually even stronger than what you can see here just on their base skill damage. Sophie also has a reduction in damage taken, allowing this combination to be more tanky and more on the anti-swarm area as a result of having so much HP and so much reduction in damage taken. There's also the combination of range squad attack at 32% for Sophie and 20% for Julia, for a total of 52%. squad attack for range. So as you can see, having Julia and Sophie together is a match made in heaven because they have the perfect balance in regards to dealing offensive damage as well as being defensive at the same time. And at this moment, as of making this video, Sophie and Julia is the meta strongest field range combination at this time. The next combination that's also very good is Sophie and Lynn together. And I would actually call this combination the queen of range tank because these two ladies together has so much squad reduction just between the both of them. So if you look at Sophie's 5.5% in reduction in damage taken, as well as Lynn's 4.5% reduction in damage taken, then you have a total of 10% reduction in damage taken. This is on top of Lynn's ability where she has a reduction in skill damage taken by 20%, and also when flanked, there's also an additional reduction in damage taken by 10%. So as you can see, this is a super tanky range combination, making this very difficult to kill. On top of that, Lynn also has 32% counter damage, making this pair annoying to swarm because you're going to be paying for the damage that you deal to them back to you. This is also a very fast combination because Lynn has 20% travel speed and Sophie also has 20% travel speed for a grand total of 40% travel speed. So this is good for trying to keep up with the Mia and Adat combination in the field or any other opponents that is quite fast in the field. Of course, you're not going to be as fast as them, but you're still not going to be as slow as the traditional range pair. On top of that, Sophie's 32% in range squad HP combined with Lynn's 34% in range squad HP gives you a grand total of 66% range squad HP, making this combination tanky on top of tanky. So I give this combination an A rank. The only downside is it does suffer a little bit on the damage side of things, but you do gain that back in the defensive side of things. The next combination is going to be Julia and Lynn. So traditionally, I actually put these two together in the field just because I didn't have Sophie awakened yet. So I just got Sophie awakened just on this week's Archipelago raid. But traditionally, I did put Julia and Lynn together and they are an amazing pair together. And the reason why is, as you know, Julia tends to get swarmed easily. So when you put these two combinations together, I call it the swarm bait combination because I'm baiting the enemy to swarm me and they're gonna pay for it with a counter damage. And I usually do this if I know my opponents are weaker than me and I know a bunch of them wants to swarm me. So I just send my Julia and my Lynn to the field, let them swarm me, and let the counter damage of Lynn do the work for me. On top of that, together with Lynn's 34% increase in range squad HP and Julia's 40% increase in range squad HP, you have a grand total of 74% range squad HP, giving you perhaps the highest amount of range squad HP possible in this game from two range hero combinations, combining their range squad attack of 20% from Julia and also from Lynn's 30%, then you have a respectable 50% increase in range squad attack. So much like the Sophie and Lynn combination, the Julia and Lynn combination, I would give it an A rank because it is slightly higher on the offensive side of things and slightly lower on the defensive side of things. But overall, it is fairly balanced with the Sophie and Lynn combination in that regard. And it's really good for baiting the enemy into swarming you to get those points in PvP events. The next combination is a fun one, and I would only recommend this if you are fighting close to your shelter because this combination is not very tanky at all, but it does provide a huge amount of AoE damage. So I call it the AoE God build because you're going to be combining Lewis along with Bard, and together they're going to cause so much AoE damage to the opponents. Just to illustrate, if you fully transcend Bard, he's going to hit up to 4 enemy in a circular area for a damage factor of 15,000. Damage taken by each enemy target reduces by 10% for every additional target. So basically, from my understanding, the first damage will be 15,000, second will be 13,500 roughly, then 12,000 roughly, then 10,500 roughly. So you're hitting 4 people in the field at the same time. This is really good when there's a big battle royal happening and you want to hit as many opponents as possible. Combining that with Lewis's AoE damage of 12,000 and hitting up to 5 in a circular area, so it's going to be 12,000, then 10,800 roughly, then 9,600 roughly, then 8,400 roughly, then 7,200 roughly. So basically, you're hurting a lot of people at once with this double AoE build, but it gets killed very easily, so you want to be able to run back to your shelter if someone tries to kill you or swarm you. I do know that some people will mention that Lewis with a skin is even stronger. Then yes, you can take that into consideration, that yes, with the Lewis skin, it is a bit stronger. So take that as you will, but this combination is still the same regardless if Lewis has a skin or not. The next interesting combination is going to be Chun, who has to be the leader hero, otherwise she only deals roughly half the damage. as well as Jack Bronte, who is considered to be one of the fastest range heroes in the game, if not the fastest. So when you put them together, Chun having the highest travel speed in general of 30%, and then you combine that with Jack Bronte's 20%, then you have a total of 50% travel speed. As you know, with Jack Bronte, when his HP of his squad goes below 50%, he gets an additional 20% travel speed, giving him 40%, and for a grand total of 70% if you put him and Chun together. So basically, this is the best range speed build available in the game. They also have a decent combination of squad HP. So for Jack Bronte, you get 30% squad HP, and for Chun, you get 20% for a grand total of 50%, which is not bad at all. Skill damage is also one of their biggest perk because Chun gets that 25% skill damage, combining that with Jack Bronte's 36% in skill damage when squad size is over 50%, giving you a very strong 61% bonus in skill damage. So if you're trying to build a range speed build, this is the best combination for you to have in the game. So I give the Chun and Jack Bronte rating a B just for the purpose of utility because you can also use this combination in Bounty Ground. The last combination is going to be the budget combination, and that budget combination is going to be Lynn along with Nora. So the reason why this is the budget combination is because Nora is free and easy to awaken because you get her shards for free. Lynn is also pretty much free to get because you can get her in the black market promotion for free. So over time, you could potentially get her for free, although it will take you a very long time. But regardless, this too is the most budget in regards to range legendary hero pairs that you can get without spending a lot of extra money, or even if you are a free-to-play player. So this combination is good to add in your third, fourth, or fifth squad if you are free to play, low spend, or even a mid-spend range main player. This combination is also good for players who are infantry main or rider main who just needs one squad of range with okay heroes to use. So Nora and Lynn would be the perfect pair because Lynn would make them tanky and Nora's just free. So at least you have a somewhat usable range pair if you don't plan on investing in any range heroes if you are infantry or rider main. I give this combination a C because it's not that strong, and the only reason why I even mentioned it is because it's the best in regards to a budget combination. Now that we covered all the different range pairs for legendary heroes that I think is viable, of course, if I didn't mention it, in my opinion, it's probably not the best combination for range pairs, but it might be good to have other pairs if you're having up to 5 different range squads. So if you plan on being range main and you want to have 5 different range squads, this is my thoughts on what could be one of the best combinations if you want to have 10 heroes in 5 different range squad lineup for the purpose of field fighting. So the first one, as I already mentioned earlier, is a combination of Sophie and Julia, just because they are quick at building up rage and they deal a lot of damage. Second combination, you would be actually surprised, in my opinion, would actually be Lewis and Bianca. So Bianca is a leader hero, and the whole idea here is that Lewis is going to be building up a lot of rage, right? Which will allow Bianca to fire her rage much quicker. And what does her rage do? Well, it increases the attack and defense of your nearby ally and also instantly restores 60 rage to them. So basically, you are creating a rage battery for your entire 5 range squad, as well as just buffing their attack and defense to make them last longer in the field. Not to mention, it will also grant a shield factor every 10 seconds for up to 3 squads. So as you can see, if you have multiple squads, this really benefits your entire team by having this rage, attack, and defensive battery available to you. Next combination that I think is quite interesting to have as well is actually going to be Lynn along with the new leader hero, Claude LeBlanc. And the main reason here is that Claude is definitely going to be Swarm first, because if you don't, he's going to create too much reduction in damage taken by your entire team. And he does this to 5 squads. Not to mention, Claude will also heal the team if the squad size becomes too low. So Claude is dangerous. But if you pair him up with Lynn, who is one of the most tanky of all the range heroes, it's going to be more difficult to kill him, especially because Lynn is going to create that counter damage. So if you try to swarm them, you're going to pay for it. So it's not the best idea actually to swarm this pair, but you have no choice. Otherwise, Claude is going to be buffing your team too much and debuffing the enemy at the same time. So as you can see, the Lynn and Claude pairing in regards to having multiple range squad is very deadly, and I strongly believe you're going to start seeing this in the field much more frequently in the future the moment people unlock and awaken Claude. The next combination is more out of convenience just because you already have these heroes, and it has a similar effect as the Lewis and Bard combination with the AoE damage, and that's going to be Ethan, who must be transcended at least partially along with Bard. So basically, they're going to give you AoE damage, although for Ethan, it's going to be more on a fan shape instead of circular, unless of course the 30 stacks of gunfire has been removed, in which case he can deal damage in a circular area. Ethan in general deals a lot of damage the moment you transcend him, as he can deal 14,750 damage. So basically, Ethan and Bard would just be an AoE damage dealing machine in your squad. And as well, when you're developing your heroes, Ethan is going to be very useful as range garrison and Bard for range rally. So you don't want to put them to waste. So you definitely want to transcend them at least partially so that they're both viable in the field if you are planning on having multiple range squads. The last combination is going to be up to you on how you want to approach this. Basically, you can do the Chun and Jack Bronte speed build as one of your squads in the 5 range squads. But if you don't want to invest in Chun, because she's a pretty old hero nowadays and she's pretty much a glass cannon at the same time, then you can instead do Nora, who is for free, along with Jack Bronte. But if you don't want to invest in Jack Bronte because he requires double the legendary hero fragments to level up, then you can also do Nora and Chun together. Yes, I do know that there is a hero in range called Johnny Carey, which is this clown, but he's completely useless, so I don't even want to mention him at all for any range squad combination. But basically, that's my thoughts on a good example of 5 range squads available in this game that you can put together. Obviously, you can put any other combination together. Just make sure that you have thought about it logically in regards to why you're putting them together. Like for example, you might say, oh, why aren't you putting Bard with Julia in the field? Because isn't Bard stronger when he's attacking an enemy that's been silenced? Well, the answer is yes, it's true. So you can potentially do Chun Bard or Julia Bard, right? But the thing is, if you have 5 squads, Julia will silence the enemy regardless in a different range squad. So the enemy will have silence on them already anyways. Therefore, Bard can deal that extra damage anyways without them having to be in the same pairing. So by that logic, you don't have to put Bard and Julia together or Bard and Chun together. So anyways, that's about it for this video on all the different range squad pairing that I can think of that is viable to use. In the future videos, I'm going to be covering different combinations available for range squad rally as well as range squad garrison. So anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.